I can just about guarantee that any man or woman who has ever lifted a shotgun to the accelerated departure of a long-tailed rooster pheasant was first smitten with the image of raucous roosters cackling skyward from full-cut cornfields, while pointing dogs followed them up and hunters twisted to slide shotguns to their shoulders. That picture, even for those who have never seen a Kansas cornfield, is the crème de la crème of hunting scenes. The seeds of this Americana were planted nearly a century ago, painted in all their glory on popular outdoor calendars, picture postcards and even tin-backed ammunition posters hung on the walls of small-town gun shops. Like the Thanksgiving turkey, it has become the harbinger of fall and the hunter's time to be afield for upland game birds. Yet for all its beauty and tradition, there is another world to ringneck hunting, and it is one, I suspect, that sees a far greater number of participants, though it's far less advertised or written about. Let me give you a personal example. I was raised in country where I could hunt bull pintail in the Great Marsh, just outside of town, and get back before the first bell rang for school to start, get out in the afternoon and head for the Coast Range Mountains that rose just back of town to hunt blacktail deer, and on weekends hunt pheasants in both places and several in between. This may sound unusual, but it is not. Our nation is highly diversified when it comes to flora and fauna, and hunters have learned to adapt to this diversity to be successful. Similarly, there is no more adaptable bird than the ringneck pheasant if you just give him half a chance. Wetlands. One of the most prolific producers of wild bird populations is found in the tulle-lined margins of wetlands such as Back Bay estuaries, marshes, lakes, rivers and ponds because of two vital factors: thick cover and abundant food sources. Hunting these tule roosters is a challenge by any measure, but certainly there are ways to find, pinpoint and engage them there. Dawn roosters announce themselves to the world and other cocks nearby by crowing constantly as daylight comes over the land. Because they are so widely scattered, they vocalize a great deal. You can capitalize on this by being out listening for them, then moving quickly to that location before they either move to begin feeding or fly off someplace else. What makes this so different from field hunting is that you literally hunt a single bird instead of pushing a dozen or more ahead of you to put up in a flurry where cover ends. This is something that must be understood from the start, for it turns tactics completely around. In large estuary wetlands, you can use boats to take you from island to island, where you either heard or saw roosters glide in and land. In these situations, you know exactly where the bird is, which is often on a very small piece of ground, giving him little room to run or maneuver. When you step ashore, you can be pretty certain you're going to put him up, whether or not you have the services of a dog. This is a highly productive way for just one man to hunt, something else unusual in the world of ringneck hunting. Almost all marshlands are enclosed by levee systems of some size, overgrown with thick weeds and even trees above the waterline. They become man-made islands of higher ground that birds will gravitate to for feeding, nesting and staying dry. And because of the narrow confines, the birds are boxed in. These narrow, winding enclosures offer hunters another important edge in that just small numbers of shooters can comb them thoroughly with one man on top and one man down each side, moving forward toward a blocker placed several hundred yards or possibly even a quarter-mile ahead. The popular phrase, "you can run but you cannot hide," fits this scenario to a T. Foothills. Rolling hill country where a crop has never been planted is another one of those places often passed up and thought of as devoid of the big birds. Beyond all equivocation, however, they are here. How can I state this with such certainty? Because I was raised there and hunted wily roosters every fall with excellent success. Much like the wetlands hunting, this land offers the birds an enormous amount of ground to roam in. The key to finding them is to know where they will generally congregate at certain times. The first rule is to concentrate your efforts in the creases, and by this I mean the canyon and valley bottoms, regardless of how large or small. You might be lucky enough to see a rooster high-tailing it through side hill trees or hot-footing it over a hilltop, but it's in the bottoms, where brush and tree-lined creeks or seeps run, that you want to hunt. The birds spend the night here, then come out at dawn to feed along the narrow margins nearby. I have driven valley roads using binoculars to find roosters this way at long distances, then park and take my honey-colored Labrador, Brandy, in after them. Invariably, they'll dive back into cover, but rarely move very far when they perceive trouble. Once she gets a lock on them, up they come. Another excellent time to work the creek bottoms is when the weather turns to cold rain, or, at higher elevations, even spitting snow. If there is anything roosters will avoid, it's getting wet and cold. The thick mats of cover found in these winding bottoms keep birds bone dry and warm from icy winds. You'll have to dig them out, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Brandy became adept at plunging into cover and snaking her way through it completely out of sight, where I could only see the tops of brush or tules shaking as she wormed her way forward. Suddenly she'd pop up and look around as if to say, "Hey boss, where are you?" Then dive back down again until she finally trapped a bird, forcing it up with a sudden flurry of exploding wings. Another most excellent time to hit the hills is right after either a rain or snow has passed. Then birds that were cooped up and unable to feed will dry off and come out to make up for lost time. Instead of the usual early and late movements when they are easiest to see out in the open, now you have the advantage of finding them any time of the day, which can extend your productive time afield, literally from dawn until dusk. Riparian fields. Enormous tracts of land across the nation are either too marginal for crops of any kind, might be used only as grazing land for cattle or sheep, or may be planted on a volunteer basis where spring rains must water them if at all. Then they are left fallow the remainder of the year to the hand of nature. They are, in fact, the exact opposite of those golden fields of wheat, corn or rye oats that produce so many birds in the farm belt down the big middle of the country, but they should not be ignored for pheasant hunting. They do hold birds. You might not find the numbers here you would in other places, but it is still a hunting challenge, most rewarding, simply because it is not easy. These lands can be sparse or burned bare by a long, hot summer sun, but the pheasants do travel, hide and roost in the weedy fence lines between fields, as well as feed in hedgerows and under low, stunted trees, grown around small seeps or windmill tanks where stock comes to drink. They are the wildest, most cautious roosters you will ever hunt, and would rather outrun a racehorse than get up and fly unless absolutely forced. Fence-line runways get them from place to place without being seen and taken by circling hawks or prowling coyotes. But they are easy for just 2 men to hunt successfully. One man is dropped off while his pal either drives or circles well out ahead on foot, several hundred yards, or to the juncture of 2 fence lines. He serves as a blocker, waiting while his partner starts slowly toward him, squeezing birds into a smaller and smaller space until they are forced to take wing. Almost always, this will be those last few yards when the gunners come together as tension builds and adrenaline pounds with anticipation. One man with a good dog has the same advantage in that his 4-legged friend can move faster than a running rooster, then pin him to stop until the shooter can get up close and put the bird up. One hunter alone stands a very small chance of doing this, which is why a good pointer or retriever is vital if you prefer only your own company. In fact, it's no less exciting to put up a cackling rooster from a barbed wire fence with just your dog than 10 men herding 20 birds ahead through lush fields of knee-high cut wheat. For many, it is even more rewarding on their own. Any place where moisture exists, pheasants will frequent for feed and cover, leaving sign in their tracks telling you that you're in the right place. There are small cover islands in open land too attractive for birds not to take advantage of. You may have to walk a mile or 2, or drive even farther to hunt out such special spots. But having 3 or 4 of these covers to rely on will produce birds in marginal country where little else will. Some of these very untraditional places to hunt offer up the great roosters of fall, giving hunters a chance to ply a trade as old as the bird's introduction in this nation over a century ago. For many of us, these lands are really just common ground we've hunted all our lives, and just between you and me, I have to admit, I've never been to Kansas. Republished with permission from Roosters in the Rough by Art Isberg, 2006. The Upland Almanac, Höst 2006, 2006 by Art Isberg.